In this lecture, we're going to be talking about some of your basic cognitive abilities: focus, concentration, and attention. People usually think that focus equals concentration equals attention. When you're focused on something, means that you're concentrated on something, means that your attention is geared or oriented towards something specific that you're working on, reading, watching, whatever the case is. However, focus is not concentration and it's definitely not attention. All these things are different. Each and every one of them means something different, and you need to understand that. When it comes to your focus and your attention and your concentration, there are some abilities you have, there are some basics and fundamentals you need to understand, and there are some limitations also that you need to keep in mind. Focus is usually long-term oriented. When you want to talk about focus, let's say you're focused on your studies, meaning that you as a person are focused on studying as one of the primary priorities that you have on a daily basis. Focus is usually geared towards a bigger picture. You're aiming towards the future and you kind of realize what you need to focus on in the present. And this gets us to a bit of a more specific part, which is what are you concentrating on in the present moment? Which gets us to concentration. And concentration is in the now. What are you concentrating on? So the big focus or the big image is your studies. And let's say right now you're concentrated on a certain course. You're going through the presentations and you're concentrating on the information in the presentations. So again, focus is a bigger picture, it's your education. Concentration is a bit more specific. It's what are you trying to concentrate on right now? What are you trying to work on right now? And attention is instant. The way attention works is that you always hear the phrase, it grabbed my attention. It happens in a second. You don't concentrate on something. Once you concentrate, you already went towards concentration. When your attention is guided or oriented towards something specific, this thing grabbed your attention. If you have a long enough attention on that specific thing, then this attention becomes concentration. You're not just in an attention kind of spot, but you moved towards concentration. It's not just your attention that's working, but it's shifting towards concentration. And once you concentrate on something long enough that it becomes one of the things that you want to focus on in general, then this concentration has kind of a focus background to it. And focus, concentration, and attention, even though they're different, of course, they're interrelated. Just as we said, something grabs your attention, then you concentrate on it for long enough for it to become the object of concentration, and then this object of concentration can become a main object of focus that you have in life. And it also works backwards. You can be concentrated on something, and then attention might interfere. Something else might grab your attention, and once that happens, there's a shift from concentration to attention, and then all the way back to concentration and then focus. Sometimes you're focused on something, but something else grabs your attention. So, going back to the example, your main focus is your education. But then you notice an ad saying you can make $1 million in 3 months. So that caught your attention, and this object that grabbed your attention might now switch your focus into something else, into knowing how you can make that amount of money in that amount of time. And this will also influence your concentration and will, of course, also at the end of the day, influence your attention. Now, what we want to really focus on, especially when it comes to reading, is your ability to concentrate and your ability to control your attention, because focus, the bigger image is kind of clear. You want to be able to read at a certain speed. You want to finish a certain amount of books at a certain amount in a certain amount of time. So this is the focus, and we got to figure it out. Now, the concentration and the attention is where our focus should be. Concentration usually starts from the top and then goes all the way down. The way it happens is that you have a a certain object. You have a certain visual object in front of you, whether it's a text, whether it's a video, whether it's an equation, whatever it is, there is a visual object of concentration that this is where you first start. This is where the top-down process starts. This is the top. And then what happens is that this visual object needs to become the object of concentration once your eyes receive this visual object, and then your mind will do the processing to get into the zone of concentrating on the specific object. It becomes also clear from a cognitive standpoint where your attention should be oriented. So what happens is that you got the main object of concentration, you did the mental processing that needs to tell your mind or your cognitive state that this is what I'm concentrating on at the moment, which will in return influence your attention and make sure that your attention will stay oriented towards this specific object. And of course, attention plays a really important role when it comes to concentration, because your attention can either help you or it can be detrimental. In a sense where if you're reading a passage per se, and then something grabs your attention, your concentration might shift from the passage you're reading towards the other object that grabbed your attention and is now grabbing your concentration as well. Simultaneously, when you're reading a passage, you have a tendency to remember specific things. Usually, the things that you remember are things that grabbed your attention, which made the concentration ability on this specific idea a bit more intense. Hence why you remember this when you finish the passage. You don't remember the entire passage, you remember snippets of it that grabbed your attention and made your concentration a bit more effective and efficient. Now, when it comes to losing concentration, it is kind of reversed. It's a bottom-up process. Now, you gotta understand that losing concentration first is a very natural evolutionary process. We lose attention because our mind needs to guide our concentration and attention towards an object that might put us in danger or might give us some kind of pleasure. When you're reading a book and you hear sirens outside of your house, your attention immediately switches towards the sirens for a second at least, not because you're not concentrated on what you're reading, it's because naturally your defensive system will kick in and your attention will be shifted towards what's a bit more crucial towards your survival. And of course, hearing sirens that can put you or somebody else in a danger position, is much more crucial or important for survival than the fact that you're reading a passage. It starts with your brain telling you that there's something you need to focus on, and then you use your visuals to kind of locate the object that you need to be concentrating on, which will then gear you towards the object that you need to concentrate on. That's why it's a bottom-up process, because it starts with the mental signal, goes to the visuals, all the way down to the object, where in the previous case, when we're talking about how to concentrate, it's a top-down process because it starts with the object of concentration, then to the visuals, then it moves to the brain activity or simulation of what's going on or how you want to interpret your concentration towards this object. One of the things that people do pretty often that can really mess with this cycle of focus, attention, and concentration is multitasking. People think that when they multitask, this is going to make them more productive. You're going to get a lot more done in less time, when in fact this is not the case. The system is clear. Focus, attention, and concentration needs to kind of be correlated or in sync. Even though they're different, they work together. It is scientifically proven that once you lose your concentration, there's a small span of about 20 to 25 minutes that you need in order for you to get back to the same amount of concentration you were in when you first stopped, or where your attention kind of shifted your concentration towards something else. So what happens when you're multitasking? Well, first, you're focused on several things. You're not focused on one thing. You might be trying to work out, and at the same time you're trying to listen to an audiobook. Even if it's two things, that's still considered as multitasking. So you have two big objects of focus, the gym and the audiobook. Your concentration is going towards your workout when you're doing your set, for example, and your concentration would shift back towards the book when you're taking a break between sets. But it doesn't work that way. It takes time for your concentration to build up properly towards a specific object. So when you do that, you have two objects of focus, you have two objects of concentration, and you have double more factors that can interfere with your attention, hence interfere with your concentration and focus, which will make you less productive and not more productive. And you can try this yourself. Try to listen to an audiobook while you're working out or while you're doing anything else. Try listening to an audiobook while you're kind of multitasking, and then try to listen to the same book while you're not multitasking. And you will generally notice that you got to retain a lot more information, you got to understand a lot more things when you were solely focused on the audiobook itself and not multitasking. And lastly, you need to understand that concentration, focus, and attention, they all work just like a human muscle. Just like any muscle in your body, the more you train it, the better and stronger it becomes. When you train your concentration abilities, when you train your focus, when you train your attention span and your attention, how it influences your concentration, you're building towards a stronger cognitive ability to concentrate, focus, and have an attention span or an attention orientation that you desire. And of course, when we want to talk about speed reading, concentration is one of the most important factors. If you are not concentrated on what you're doing, you will face a lot of struggles when it comes to speed reading, which is something we want to avoid. So therefore, we will be talking more about how to increase your concentration, how to control your attention, and how to kind of shift your focus in the right orientation for you to get the best out of it. There are going to be some exercises and some tools that you can use, and I highly encourage you to use these exercises and tools, because if you have better concentration ability, you will be able to access speed reading in a way that's way easier, more efficient, and more effective for you.